Good morning, everybody. Has anyone in this room ever called 911? Usually, well, sometimes I feel like I butt dial 911, but that's different. You hold the button wrong and it comes on. But usually, that's not a good thing, right? It can be stressful. It can be a number of things, because what it means, and this is coming from a relatively calm person, is that there's a situation happening that you can't control. You're not an expert at it, and you don't know what to do, and so you call somebody who is. So this week, I had to call 911, and it was everything I just described to you. It was out of my hands, it was out of everything. And so as I was ready to finish up this series on love, I was wondering what to do, because we've been through all the verses already. I don't know if you've been keeping track. There's 13 verses in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And I thought about repeating the last verse and whatever. And then I came up with the idea at the end of last week or whatever to just, we've said what love is, what love isn't, all these different things. But I wanted to show you in story form, like stories of what love looks like and what it doesn't look like and whatever. And I'm combing through stuff and I'm trying to find my stories, and I'm not quite there yet. And I'd say that for the preparing for the week, for the Sunday message, when I hit midweek, I was a little behind as compared to normal, because I hadn't found my stories yet. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because they say God supplies what you need. And so God supplied his own story. And we're going to look at this last verse again. But I do want to say, and I put a different message out there last night, if anybody looked at that one, because I don't know if this is a story I can tell twice, and I don't know if it's a story I can tell to just a camera that's sitting in front of me. So I did say on there that I would record it and put it up after, in case anybody that wasn't here wanted to see it or whatever. So if it's not like gross or inappropriate or anything like that, but it's sensitive subject matter, and if it hits you in a certain way and you can't handle it and you walk out, that's fine. And I'm not saying that's going to happen or I expect it to happen. I understand some things hit too close to home or whatever, and that's okay. I would hope that I could speak to that as well, that you're not alone if you've experienced those things. But I feel like I've never been more prepared and less prepared at the same time, because if you don't know me, I have to prepare well, because I just don't stand up in front of people and speak naturally. I mean, I can't even give 2 announcements without an awkward pause in between. And so I'm very prepared every week to talk, and so I just don't talk off the cuff. But this, I could probably talk for 2 hours, and I'm not gonna, so I'm prepared. But I'm also not prepared. So I read the last verse again. And now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So, Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. To get to the end of the story, it was 7:37 p.m. and it was only a 6-minute call. But it started out different than that. In most ways, it was a normal Wednesday at our house, which means we were kind of running all over the place. We'd found out how to get people to sports practices and whatever. Erin had been in Columbus for work all day Tuesday and all day Wednesday, and this is Wednesday. And so she had it arranged that she could drive back from Columbus, and on the way back, pick up one kid in Midview from practice and another kid from Columbia. I'm supposed to be golfing, and so we go out to the golf course. The other kids are at home making themselves dinner, doing whatever they do. And we're in the golf parking lot with Sue, and everybody's congregated around because we're looking, and everybody looks at their radar and their phones. And I don't like radar and phones. You know why? Because they're always wrong. And if they're wrong, then it adjusts 5 minutes later and says it's raining now. And so everybody's, well, the radar said it was supposed to, and the radar said it was supposed to do this. And I'm just looking at the air and smelling the air and feeling the wind, and I'm like, this doesn't look good. And so for once, everybody agrees with me, and they're all talking, and they decided to cancel golf, because rather than wait, and they're like, well, it's not raining yet, and you go out there and you golf 2 holes, and then it downpours and you get soaked, and then they cancel it anyway. And then you lose part of your money because you golfed and you paid for golf. So we decided to be done. So I leave from there, it's not raining yet. I happen to drive by the middle school, and soccer practice just got canceled. Coach drove up and said, canceled! And as one child gets in the car, it begins to pour. Drive home, get there, just get in the door, and as we're driving, it really starts to pour. And then Aaron gets home from Columbus with the other kid because their practice got canceled too. And so here we are, we're all at home for a change. So while it's storming and the thunder and the lightning and everything came, and here it was. Here's the big storm, but we all get to eat dinner together, which isn't that common during the week anymore. So we eat dinner, an unplanned surprise, it's good. We watch the storm come, we watch the storm go, kind of gets a little calm. At 5:15, it looked like it was dark and ready for bed, and then after dinner, here it was, it's a little calmer. It's a little wetter, it's a little cooler. There it is, the storm had passed, maybe. Then I thought, well, this is some borrowed time, right? I'm supposed to be golfing. Wasn't golfing. Here I'm at home, eating dinner together. I knew we needed copy paper for the copy machine because we didn't have it. And so I thought, well, let's take a trip. Let's go into Strongsville and get some copy paper. And so I asked one of the kids to go because normally they'll ride with me because that means we get to stop and get something at the gas station to drink or whatever. And they're smart like that, so they know. But for a change, no one goes with me, so it's just me. So I thought, I will listen to some music and relax and do some stuff, maybe listen to some new songs or whatever. But abnormal that a kid doesn't go with me, because out of 4, usually one's gonna say yes. So here I am. So I go into Strongsville on Pearl Road, I go in the store, and I'm looking, and of course when you walk in the store and you need something, there's a display right there in front of you. And I'm like, that's what I need. I'm like, it can't be that easy. That looks really expensive. I don't want to buy that one. So let's go back in the aisle. And then if you're like me, you go, and of course they look in the aisle. It must have been for 25 minutes trying to find something cheaper, something better. But in physical stores anymore, they just don't have stuff. That's why they put it out front. They're like, well, this is all we have. You can take it or leave it. So after wandering for 20 minutes, the same 15 feet back and forth, looking at the different kinds of paper, glossy, non-glossy, black and white, color, whatever it is. Finally, I decided to go back to the display and get one of them that's right there that's too expensive. And it's a big box. It's got at least 10 reams of paper in it, of 500 sheets each. And so I'm carrying that up, and I go. And I pay, and I take it out, and it's not raining anymore. It's beautiful outside. Put it in my trunk, sit in my car, and I'm like, here I am by myself, get to listen to some music. I'm going to decide which way to go home. I don't know about you. That's one of the joys I take in life. I'm like, there's 10 different ways you could take home. I'm going to look, and I'm going to pick one. And I sit there for a little bit, and I pick my music, I'm going. And so I decided a way to go home. So I get into my trip, and while I'm driving, of course, you don't go the way you decided, right? I'm like, no, but let's go this way instead. So I decide, and here I am, instead of going straight, I make a right turn. Less than 1 minute later. 1 minute later, after I just randomly decide to take a different turn. So I'm driving. It's in Strongsville. It's on Fair Road. If you know your directions, I came from the east, and so I was on that Park Road, Eastland or whatever, and you turn on Fair. So it's on Fair in between, I think it's Eastland and Prospect. You just cross the railroad tracks, and I look, and it's not way crowded. There's cars here and there. And I look, and there's a truck parked on the side of the road coming the other direction. Not that normal. It's in the suburbs. Speed limit is 25 miles per hour. Get a little closer. Passenger doors open. There's a man standing there. I'm like, oh, maybe we should get closer, see if something's wrong. And sorry, I haven't really even had a conversation with my children yet because I'm still processing. But as I get closer, I see the man, I see the open passenger door. I'm on the other side of the road, and I think I see somebody laying on the ground. First thought, It's a road like this, 25, somebody was going too fast, somebody was going to the mailbox, and they got hit, and here's this guy trying to see if they're okay and do whatever, and I thought, oh, I have to help. There's, that's what you have to do. Start to slow down, get closer, look over, it's definitely a body on the ground. Start to pull over, get out of my car to run over and ask the guy if he needs help. Runs around the truck, he gets in the driver's side, speeds off. Seen enough cop shows, I'm like, should I get his license plate? Should I do whatever? They're gonna ask me later, blah, blah, blah. But there's this person laying there, so I immediately run over to the person. So I get over there, and this girl is completely pale. My first thought is, she's been gone for a couple days or whatever, and that he just dumped her on the side of the road, just dead. So, a little bit freaking out, grab my phone, still there's nobody there. Start to call 911, it's ringing, there's cars driving by. I'm kind of waving at people, I'm not sure what I did, kind of waving at people, and they're looking at me like, and I don't blame them, there's some person half out of their mind, there's a body on the ground, maybe I would drive by too, I don't know. The woman answers 911, asks what city. Immediately I start to explain what's going on, and she's like, whoa, what city are you in? And I said, Strongville. Oh, let me transfer you to the Strongville dispatch. Start to tell the story again. There's a woman on the side of the road, there was a truck here, there was a man, I don't know what happened, he sped off. Here I am, there's a body, she's pretty pale, doesn't look alive at all. I don't know what you need to send out because I think it's too late or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And she says, well, standard procedure, you have to go over and check to see if she's breathing. And I'm like, okay. So I go over and I get about 2 feet away and I see her stomach move. Not like constantly, just like once. And something, I'm like, oh, great. And at that time, another guy runs across the street, finally, because to me, this has taken an hour already in my mind. He runs over, whatever, we're talking to the lady, she's like, well, she's alive, you need to grab her hand and talk to her and try to get her to respond and ask her name. And so I'm holding a person that looks dead, I'm trying to talk to them, trying to get her non-responsive totally, eyes half open. It dawns on me at this point, I'm no expert, that it's a drug overdose. And that the reason that she's pale is because this is not something that happened one night. This is an ongoing process that tears down your body, does all this stuff that makes you look to where you can't tell if they're 19 years old or 49 years old. It's the same. It's like watching a movie. And so, but she's alive. And so I continue to try to talk to her. She's telling me, you gotta check the pulse, you gotta check for breathing, all that. I'm on the phone, I'm like, okay. I'm holding the phone on to this other guy's there. So he's kind of trying to help. He's like, whatever. And then he moves her head a little bit and she gasps and breathes like erratically for a minute. Still not conscious, still non-responsive totally. And so he's like, her head's completely to the side, you have to hold it up to keep her breathing. I'm like, okay. And so I'm still trying to hold the phone and doing this and holding her hand and propping her head up or whatever. And I'm talking to the lady on 911 and she's saying all these things and I'm talking to a person laying on the ground and nothing. Finally I hear sirens. She hears them through the phone. She's like, are they arriving now? And I'm like, yes, they are. And she's like, well, I'm gonna hang up now. You can hand it over to them, whatever. And so I hang up the phone, continue to hold her head, continue to hold her hand and talk to her. That call, I checked it later, it was only 6 minutes. But 1 million things went through my head in 6 minutes. It's not over, they get here. 2 cops arrive at once, then another one, they block off the road, they come over, I'm still standing there, holding her head and holding her hand. And unfortunately, they've seen this before. They start to ask what's happened, but immediately they're trying to talk to her. They put Narcan up her nose, doesn't do anything. Do another one, giving CPR the whole time I'm holding her head. I'm holding her hand and I'm trying to talk to her. A couple minutes later, an EMT gets there, and of course they ask, and they're like, how much Narcan did you give them, whatever? And they tell them, and they pick her up on the board and put her in the ambulance, and she's gone. Relatively short period of time, but not for me so far. Not very short, but there's no person there anymore. So I spend the next, I don't know how long, filling out a police report. Because if the rest of us know too, if you've seen cop shows and you've seen whatever, and then I'm like, I never thought I'd do this, and they're asking you questions, and did you see the license plate? I explained, I'm like, I thought about it, but then I saw a person and I ran over there, and they're like, I understand. And so they're like, write on this piece of paper what happened. Don't leave out any details, even if you think it's insignificant, because we put it all together later. And I'm like, oh boy, I've heard that before. And so I'm doing it, and I'm not gonna lie, I can barely write. I'm shaking. At that time, people are starting to come out of the woodwork from everywhere. The guy that came to help told me that his sister was in the car that drove by that I was waving at frantically, and so he came to check what's going on. Other people came out trying to fill out this report. There's people yapping in my ear while I'm trying to write down and while I'm trying to remember, and I still don't know what's going on. And they're talking, and so I fill out this report and I give it to them and I sign it. And like I said, unfortunately for the police officers, not the first time they've maybe not found a body on the side of the road, but responded to a call and dealt with things like this. I can't remember a whole lot. A dude, taller than me, dark, short hair, a truck with an extended cab, dark blue, I think with a stripe down the middle, rusted. I'm trying to write down these details. Well, see if you remember anything else. I didn't. I remember it's not a normal day. I remember it was storming earlier. I remember I'm not golfing. I remember there was no practice. I'm supposed to be golfing right now. I'm not. So these are the little coincidences in life. As I stand there for longer, a man comes out and he's like, yeah, this truck he was in the neighborhood right here, and I seen him speeding around, driving erratically, slamming on the brakes, doing whatever. And the cop's like, well, if you saw him again, would you recognize him? He's like, definitely. He was driving erratically, whatever. Another woman comes out, says that she saw him try to pull the girl out of the truck and was struggling. Now, don't think in your head, well, why didn't she come out or why she didn't do anything? Because if my family lived in that house and anyone but me would have left the house, I would have scolded them. Because you don't know what's going on. Here's somebody pulling a person out of a vehicle. So all this starts to come together and everybody's like, yeah, I saw a dark blue truck or whatever with a stripe. I think it was maybe a Ford 150 or whatever. It was rusted, whatever. Don't know which direction it went. So they're piecing the things together. And then here I am a couple minutes later, the road's still blocked off, and they're like, okay, you can go now. The 911 operator has my phone number. The police have my phone number. I'm probably never going to hear from anybody again. Probably not going to know what happened. This probably happens to the police all the time. Once they let it go to the EMT, you're not going to know anything. I think I drove home with the windows down, no music on, and whatever, just looking straight ahead. A million thoughts go through your head. One of my children could have been in the car. I'm not saying I would have responded any different, but they weren't. It's not normal, but they weren't. Could have been golfing. I could have not wandered around the aisle for 25 minutes first at Staples, but I did. And so I came upon this person. I'm gonna call it an incident. It's life, right? Just changed the sign for Pastor Steve, when life happens. Well, I guess it did. I want to ask a million questions when I'm leaving, but I'm not related to this person. But my mind wants to know everything. I don't know how long I'll remember. Took the 13-minute drive home. Again, it felt like an hour. Was thinking, if I walk in the door, how am I going to explain this? Will they be able to tell immediately? I don't. Thinking about my kids that could have been there. Thinking about golfing. Thinking it'd taken extra long at the store. I'm thinking about the storm that came through and blew through. I couldn't sleep that night, of course. I fell asleep a little bit, and then I woke up, and then again my mind was racing. Part of me feels guilty that I want the picture of a person's face out of my head. And part of me wants the picture gone so that I don't have to deal with it. Part of me feels bad for that. So, I don't know. It was a person. It was a human being. Doesn't matter what state they're in. They're on the side of the road. It was someone's daughter. I don't know how you know how people come into the world, but it was someone's daughter. On the side of the road. Many have said since then, because I've had to tell the story a million times, oh, it's a good thing you were there. Oh, you're a good Samaritan. You're a good person. Even a non-believer mentioned to me how that me, as a man of faith, had all those things happen that put me in the right spot at the right time. Someone who doesn't really believe in God or practice, even they said that. I've heard it more than once. So ultimately, people are commenting on, commending me for what I did, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, there was no choice. There was no choice driving by. So they're commending me for doing the only thing that could have happened. There's no way I could not stop. It was a person. I don't care if she would have been gone for a week. She was a person. I spent the last 6 weeks talking about love. Talked about what love is, what love isn't, the do's, the don'ts. But here's the thing, it's not perfect timing or circumstances, it just is. Love is. When the love of God resides inside of us, there's no choices to be made, to love or not love, it's just there. You don't do or not do, it's just there. There's no choice for me what to do. And here's the good thing for you. It didn't matter if I did all the right things or the wrong things or stumbled over my words or didn't know what to do. It just is. Love doesn't keep tracks of what you do right and wrong. It is. It's inside of you. And that's why it happened. Because God's inside of me. You see, you wake up every day and you decide to love God or not love God. And every time you decide to love God, every time you make that choice, then God is inside of you and love is inside of you. And if God is inside of you, love is inside of you, then love is, and love just does what it does. It doesn't say you did it wrong. It doesn't say you should have done this. It doesn't say don't do that. It just does. Just like a wild animal, if you stick your hand out, it's going to bite you because that's what it does. You don't teach it to do that. You can teach people and things to do the opposite of what they're made to do. But there's no choice. Zero choice, it's in there. The choice was deciding to love God every day. And the more you do it, the more He's inside of you, the more you act the way love does. The more you don't, the harder it is, and you think you have to make these choices, and you think you're making choices, but in some ways, the other choices are being made for you at that point, because you chose not to love God. There's another person in the story. There's the person that was in the truck. And you can be quick to point the finger, you can shake your head, you can do whatever you want, but that was the person too. And in many ways, whether you can relate to that person or not, they didn't have a choice either. They made their choices a long time ago that set off a series of events that made them in the state that they could no longer make decisions. They, of course, at that point, without God, chose self-preservation, trying to take the easy way out, trying to do whatever. I would argue they didn't have a choice. It was already made. You wake up every day, you decide to love God, you decide to get closer to Him, or you don't. The rest of the stuff takes care of itself. Doesn't mean you don't make wrong choices. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means the love part is decided already. Every day, this is extreme, right? Every day I make those choices. Stare at my phone for 15 more minutes or talk to my wife, right? Wake up and first thing, go watch an episode of Netflix or get in my Bible. Every day. It doesn't sound so drastic, does it? Because certain things in life you decide and it sets you down a path that's hard to recover from. And that was that. Man, I don't know. I wasn't there. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that he was probably on drugs too and addicted, and at that time just responding to however to get out. I don't know. Not in his mind. I won't judge. Because I make little choices every day. Do I make the perfect choice every morning, every minute, every second? Of course I don't. When I interact with one of you or a person in a not loving way, it's not because at that moment I chose to act in an unloving way. It's because probably that day I already didn't make the choice that I needed to make to seek God first and to want to be close to Him and to want that love. That was the choice, not to be mean to you or to be nice to you. You act how you are. You want to see how you really are? Try to go without food for a couple days and see how you treat people. That's how you really are. If you're going to do it and you don't want to snap at anybody, I suggest you spend as much time with God as possible during that time. Again, you choose Him or you don't choose Him. You're like, but John, you talked for 6 weeks on love is and love isn't, and do this and do that. I'm just telling you, that's showing you what it looks like. It's not a choice. It's a choice to love God. And so we all need help making that choice every day. It's not the do this, love that, do whatever. I know that most people in this room, if we're put in the same position as me, would do all the same things I did this week when they're like, well, that's a big thing and you have helped and good thing you were there and whatever. And it's like, I don't have a choice. I don't even want to be commended for that. Maybe I'll tap myself on the back for not passing out and bumping my head on the ground. That's about it, because I don't know. I know I'm going to be thinking about it for a while, and then when I start to forget, I'm going to be thinking I'm guilty for forgetting, because there are people involved. So rather than come back over your notes, because I know you're all diligent in studying about the last 6 weeks on love and what you do and what you don't do, just remember, whatever series we go to next, whatever series I come to after that, it's a choice every day to wake up. You decide to get closer to God. If you want to be good at a sport, what do you do every day? You practice it to where it's instinctual and it just happens. How in the world do we expect to get closer to God if we don't try to do it every day and work at it? It's hard. I know, I just made it sound easy. You don't worry about do's, you don't worry about don'ts, you don't worry about all these things, you don't worry about definitions, you just seek God every day. I know that's hard, that's not easy, but it's simple. It's not easy, it's simple. So let's pray for each other to make the right choices every day to seek God. And then, no surprise, with love inside of you, you will love people. You will act like love. And that's it.